सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Bare Knuckle Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Hey, welcome to part 2. Hey, Rob.
Hey, wearing the same clothes. How did that
Yeah, me too. Oh my God.
There are no coincidences. Only technology.
Yeah. All right. So for those of you who haven't heard part 1, you gotta definitely, I mean, you can listen to this now too, but go back and listen to part 1. So I took, because Robert's story is such a powerful story and have so many layers, and he's so reflective, and I really need to make this like in parts. So this might not even be just the last part. We could even make it up into 4 parts. Let's see what happens. God is in charge right now.
Yeah.
Krishna is in charge for me, and I think this is wonderful. So thanks again for taking all this time and sharing your experience, strength, and hope for part 2, for emotional sobriety now. Because now, in part 1, we ended, you got sober, you got clean, and and then later in life so we'll just leave it at that, and I'll just open it up for you where we left off. Did you mentioned you wanted to say a prayer?
Yes, I would like that. I'd like to do that very much.
Let's start this session with a wonderful prayer.
Yeah. In all the meetings, 12-step meetings, they often open them and close them with the serenity prayer. When I've done step work with a sponsor, we would often invite a higher power in. And I just want to take a moment to allow a higher power in, a God of your understanding, whatever that may be. And the way I was taught just recently is that this being is a gentle being and will not force its will upon us. And we have to invite it in. Let's invite the mercy, the grace, and the dignity for us to continue and to carry a message of recovery and a message of hope. God, please lay aside everything I think I know about myself, the big book, the basic text, whatever your fellowship may be, or whatever your practice may be, my addiction, the steps, and especially you, God, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all of these things. Please help me to see the truth about myself and you. Amen.
Oh, the set-aside prayer. I love the set-aside prayer.
Yeah, it's a new one for me, and I love it.
Yeah, the set-aside prayer is amazing. It's so amazing. Thank you.
And I you're welcome. And I also noticed on the Bhakti Recovery Group meeting list, one of the meetings uses the little red book, which I have that too. I recently found a group of people that are, in my view, like when I was into, getting into punk rock and hardcore, I went to Bleecker Bob's. I found the hardest record you could find. I would look for, and I did, and the people that I surrounded myself with, I hung out with, the movers and shakers of that world, right? So the same principle applied in recovery, right?
Yeah.
A nice way of saying it, you look for the winners. So I wanted the best dope. I found the best dealer who had the best dope, and the same thing with the recovery. And this group they go beyond just reading the big book, They read a lot of stuff that had influenced the first 100, and that may not necessarily be quote unquote Alcoholics Anonymous conference approved. But I've learned in having an 11th step in my life that we have to expand and grow on spiritual lines, and often that will take us on a beautiful journey in reading other literatures. And I'm not shy about that. I was for a while, because I kind of was with a lot of dogmatic NA folks, and I was one of them. I do respect the traditions, and I don't necessarily bring that into a quote unquote conventional AA or NA meeting. But in this format, I feel very free to talk about that. And you had asked me about how well, one, how you and I know each other through the punk rock and hardcore scene in New York City, but also we know of each other through the Krishna consciousness. I am not a devotee. I'm not necessarily even a practitioner. I think at best, maybe an ally or a supporter.
I think you're a devotee. You're a devotee of your God, of your understanding, man.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that.
I agree. You're a devotee 100%.
You know what Blood Clot said to me one time?
What did Blood Clot say? I
He
can't
said,
wait to hear this.
He said, "You're a devotee. You just don't know it yet." And maybe there's some truth to that, and I'm open to it. While I was, so kind of like, for folks who, hopefully they listened to the first part, I got clean in Narcotics Anonymous. I had a home group in Queens, and part of my journey was like in the 11th step in Narcotics Anonymous. They talk about having an eclectic approach. That's in the I'm referring to the Works How and Why book, which is NA's version of the 12 and 12. And I like that eclectic approach. I have an eclectic taste in music. I got like, I'm interested in many different things. And I know that God is not one dimensional. So I do identify as a Christian. And I was sort of using the prayers that I grew up with, the Christian prayers, Our Father, things of that nature, which I still use. But I used to go to the Krishna temple on St. Mark's Place. It was a temple where a lot of the sort of punk rock and hardcore people went, because a lot of us were essentially, we were street kids. I don't necessarily, I was a kid who grew up on Long Island, but I would run away from my parents' house, the Sunday matinees, hardcore and things like that. And
scared to go home, get your ass beat.
Yeah, rather than go home, just kind of hanging around. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, that's yeah, thank you. And when I had moved to the city, and when I would spend all my money on drugs, I was like, well, they got food over there, and they would have prasadam on Sundays. And I went in there towards the end of my using. Couple of things. This is interesting. A couple of things happened towards the end of my using. I remember being in a cab, dope sick out of my mind. Now, those who don't, identify with being opioids as part of your thing, there's what we call the withdrawal. If you don't have it, your body starts to, get very sick. And I remember, what little money.
Horrendous.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. We can do a whole
COVID
episode.
is nothing.
No,
like
COVID's not. Although I'll tell you, that vaccine, my reaction to it was very similar to being dope sick.
Oh, you got vaccine? Well, we're not going to do this interview. No, I'm only kidding.
Hey, listen, you could cite government oppression for that, because I work for the city.
I don't even care.
I had to take it.
God, I know.
Otherwise,
I actually had to take it too, or else I could come to the States and visit my parents. So
yeah, no, it's bullshit. But that's
Anyway, that's
I'll say that's an outside topic. Hopefully, is
absolutely.
I don't want to go there. But my heart, before I took that thing, I said, God, if it's your will to take me, take me. I'll roll up my sleeve, and I lived, and that's about all, I lived through it, and I'm grateful. Some people got really hurt behind that stuff, and it's terrible, but I don't want to get into that. Although I do, but that's not the purpose of this recording. All right, so I'm in the back seat of a cab. I'm dope sick out of my mind. I have enough for the cab driver to bring me to uptown Harlem so I can get straight. There's no way I'm going to have the patience to wait on a subway because, shit, I'm afraid to fart. Otherwise, I'm going to shit my pants. Those may be able to identify with that. And he was a Muslim. Now, you asked if I was a Muslim earlier. No, this keeps the bald head from being sunburned. And I like to play in my mind that I'm a member of I'm a jazz session musician and I'm chilling with
Your
Chick
beatnik
Corea
hat.
or something with this hat. But I dig it.
Extra
I don't.
large. It's
I
no,
just
I like
like
it too. It's an extra large yarmulke.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Got to be covered. So
Full coverage
full
yarmulke.
coverage yarmulke. So I'm in the back of this cab and he's playing on his radio the prayers, the Muslim prayers.
Ooh.
And it just came into my mind because, there's nothing worse than having a head full of recovery and a belly full of drugs. But it was my blessing because Narcotics Anonymous fucked up my high. And I'm grateful for that because there's nothing worse. You understand there's another way and you're doing something else you're using that fucking hurt. That hurt.
Because you found a choice. You have a choice now.
You have a choice.
You got a choice. And you chose the wrong one again.
And I chose to suffer for 10 years.
Again. Yeah.
So I'm in this thing and I'm in this cab and I'm hearing this and a thought came into my mind. You hear that man praying? He is connected to his God. Are you connected to your God? It tore me up. It really tore me up. I still got high that day, but it tore me up. But I look back on that now. It was God calling.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It was God calling. And it became louder and louder over time.
Yeah. There comes a time where you can't take enough drugs to quiet that down anymore. God calls, it gets louder and louder, and you take more drugs and more drugs, but still God gets louder and louder.
The love is permeating. It's just continuing. It's like the signal. That's why I tell people God's always there, constantly. This is the conscious contact. And like I said in the previous recording, this step 2 is not the God that you meet later on, the 11th step. So I'm conditioned. I'm a conditioned member of Narcotics Anonymous. I'm practicing these principles in all my affairs. Prayer and meditation is huge for me. Okay. So I'm like, hey, I used to go to this Krishna temple. It was more of an experiment. I used to go there. They would be chanting. I would be nodding. So I'm not nodding out anymore. Let's see what this experience is like. And I could feel that connection through the chanting. I could feel that connection through the reading of the Gita. I could feel, and I was like, oh, wow, they set up their cushions just like we set up the chairs at the meeting. I was like, okay. I could see the similarities because this is a spiritual disease. Now, I'm not necessarily, this is more for the benefit of the listeners. Please, my experience has shown me that religion alone is not sufficient, but religion and the program is more than sufficient. That's me.
Oh my gosh. That's me too. This is why I do all of this, Robert.
And I believe that this is an extension of God's love to begin with. So these spiritual principles will never be in conflict of whatever religion or philosophy or practice that you have. I will stake my life on that statement.
And I will stand there on the stake with my life as well.
I've seen it. I mean, I work with people and stuff. I've met many different faiths. They after usually 15 minutes of a conversation, they automatically assume I'm what they are. And I'm not even quoting a biblical verse. I'm just talking about the principles.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's so wonderful.
So going to the temple for Prasadam on Sunday, sober, clean and sober, and experiencing these things. And I was like, that's where I could come to those conclusions for myself that it's all one. And I would do, then I started to kind of identify with some of the talks that Prabhupada would give. I didn't have, I barely had internet when I got clean. So I remember, I think somebody at the temple, they gave me a VHS tape. I still had a VCR. And I watched a talk that Prabhupada gave. And he was definitely not against Christianity or anything. In fact, I felt what he would say, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because you're certainly more schooled in this than I am. He was like, you that can be part of your practice. You don't have to give up being a Christian. And I was
Of
like,
course.
oh, cool. And so I just was like, well, I don't have to give up the 12 steps either. You know, I'm listening to it from the man who brought this message over here to the United States.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah,
I
this
knew,
was the most powerful thing. You're talking about Prabhupada right now,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. So I know that he had said, I'm not here to convert anyone to believing in my religion. I'm here to remind you that you have your own religion. This is not verbatim, please. This is not verbatim. This is the essence of what he said. And I think that
right.
was the most powerful thing anyone could have ever said. I mean, Prabhupada was amazing. And he was very straight up. That's why I loved him. I love him because he's just, he's as simple as it is, as the 12 steps are, as it
Well,
is.
and that's why I love that his studies on the Gita, which I bought from the temple, Bhagavad Gita, as it is. What do we say?
Yes,
It is what it is.
that's
Acceptance.
it.
These are the
Yes.
principles that are there. So I started to
Yes.
kind of connect this, and then I also started to connect these principles to my faith, which is I identify as a Christian. Same thing. And I was like, oh wow, this is cool. And so I'm doing prashadam. I'm going to my meetings. Um, I am really grateful because my first year, and they do say this statistically. I mentioned earlier that I am a substance use counselor, so I have quote unquote clinical training. Statistically, if an individual in their first year of recovery doesn't necessarily have to work and they can focus
Hmm.
completely on the recovery, their chances of sustainable recovery increase. That doesn't mean you have to quit
Yeah.
your job, but it does.
I was so fortunate. I
I
didn't
was
have
so
to.
lucky with that. I mean,
I didn't have
I would
to.
get a little pissy sometimes because I don't have money in my pocket, whatever. But I was
Exactly.
grateful. And that's
Oh
why I was
my
like,
God, me too.
the temple, they didn't ask me for any money. The meetings didn't ask me for any money. And I walked everywhere. I need to get back to
Yeah.
that because I put on some weight since then. But and then when I found out that Prabhupada was a big on walking, that was his meditation. There's a story I heard about him at the temple where talked about when he was in New York City putting this thing together, uh, sharing the message of Krishna. He would go on these long walks. Now I'm not sure where he lived, if he lived on the Lower East Side at that time or Brooklyn, somewhere in the city, um, the metropolitan area. And it was, it was a rough patch, like it's like 60s and the 70s, you know. I mean,
New
shit. I
York
thought
was not like
the
it is now.
Lower East Side. I mean, I only started coming down there through the punk rock scene in 1985, and that was pretty barbaric then.
Oh
I
my
can only
God, yeah.
imagine earlier. I mean, we're looking at Panic at Needle Park kind of shit going on, like really a
I
lot of
grew up I
violence, a
grew
lot
up
of,
in that area.
you know. So he would walk, and the devotees would be, because they were worried. He was an older gentleman, and they thought he would be vulnerable to being attacked. And he was like, I don't care. This is my faith. I do this.
Mm,
I do this with Krishna, and all is well. Doesn't sound too different from my walk with Jesus, and all is well.
no, it
So
doesn't.
I was starting to identify with these things. And although I was getting reconnected to Christianity, the prayers, the chanting, the going to the temple, and just I would walk all the way from the Lower East Side back to where I live in Queens every Sunday.
Oh my God, how long was that?
It was awesome. Oh, take
How,
about maybe 2 hour walk, I think.
yeah, I was gonna say two and a half
And
hour walk.
and what was
Nice.
cool is and again, this is all God's doing. Because and I have to really say that I did this, I did bullshit. God was driving. I just may not have the awareness at the time. I do now. And I would get up, I would go to an 11 I think it was 11 a.m. I'm not sure. It was an 11 step meditation meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. And right after that, I would go and chill out. There was a girl I knew who was a singer for this punk rock band, The Choke, and she was also in recovery. And she worked at Manitoba's bar on
Oh
Avenue
God.
D. And I would, before, because I forgot what time it would start over at the temple, so I had time to kill. So I would chill with her, and I had
When
no.
was
This is
this? What
I
year
would.
was this around?
Oh, this 2007.
Okay, 2007. Okay, good.
So I'm yeah, I got clean March 23rd, 2007.
Okay.
So yeah, just to kind of refer back to the first recording. Uh, so I would chill with her. She, I'd drink my little free sodas and talk about recovery with her. And it's so funny because when you're free from active addiction, when you're free from the obsession to use. Now, I'm not telling a newcomer like go walk into a bar and test yourself. Don't, please do not get that twisted. But you can go to wherever you need to go to live.
Oh my God.
Don't be
Totally.
afraid. Don't be afraid.
When you're surrendered, yes.
When you've surrendered, you can do these.
When that obsession is gone, absolutely.
And again, that's the self-honesty. If you feel you can't do it, I'm not, like I said, again, I have
Don't do
no
that, yeah.
culpability here. You do what you do. But that I enjoyed that. I'm seeing punk
Oh.
rock shows. I'm going to stuff. A lot of people, that's
Oh.
not sober behavior. I'm like, well, motherfucker, being grumpy and angry and not having any kind of interest in
Well-
your life, that ain't sober either.
But
So,
the thing is this: you got to realize, especially if you're a heroin addict, a recovering heroin addict, we did isolation. All we did was go to the spot, get what we needed, and then isolate and isolate. There was no social life. There was nothing. Our life was just revolved around the getting, the needing, the finding means and ways to get more. And that's it. And so when I got clean, Robert, I was going to clubs, I was dancing, I was doing all this stuff. I didn't have a care in the world. I stayed up all night. I mean, this was my early recovery. It was like I was born again. I felt born again.
You better believe it. My God.
But I would go out with people who were clean. We would go out together, a whole bunch of people from the meeting. Crew. We'd go out after the meeting and go dancing. We'd go clubbing. We'd do this. We'd do that. And we'd drink our water all night. It was amazing.
I wish I had that. I didn't have that so much, but I did have the.
Well, I was in the Midwest. I was in Chicago. Whole different thing.
Well, what was kind of, I mean, I don't look at, I was saddened by this at the time, not so much now as I reflect back, but a lot of my friends who did get clean in 97 in New York City, a good chunk of us, and they were from the punk and hardcore scene. God damn it, punk rock and hardcore, man, I'm indebted to that because
me too.
Punk rock and hardcore, it forged my fucking spirit. It built spiritual armor. I didn't understand that at the time, but I'm so grateful for that.
Me too. Saved my life. Punk rock saved my life.
And
hardcore
it gave me
my life.
I mean, my punk rock experience is all over my fourth step. You got a whole episode on that one. I'll tell you. I'm grateful for it because I had something to go back to. A lot of folks don't have that. I had sort of a pre-made identity. Punk rock. How can you be talking shit about the government if you're supporting the drugs that come in here?
Yes.
Shit. That used to tear me up when I was getting high. There's a line in the basic text.
Smoking cigarettes. I'd be like, why am I smoking cigarettes, man?
The line in the basic text, I love it. It says, we no longer need to make fools of ourselves standing up for non-existent virtues.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, that was it. No, you're my boys. Like, your boys. You couldn't even trust yourself. They ain't gonna trust you. What are you talking about? Your boys. I got your back. Your back. Yeah. You're sucking your shoelaces. You're completely useless. My back. You got my back. But again, we can laugh about this. I'm so grateful I can laugh about it. So bringing it back to my experience with the Krishna temple, it was a big part. I can't say, I mean, occasionally I've gone to the temple in Skimmerhorn. I've gone to the Bhakti Center. I'm not sure where that plays in my life today. I think the way it expresses itself today is my relationship with the Bhakti Recovery group. And you,
yeah,
that's yeah. And I just realized that right now. And that's cool for me.
I love that. And
That's
it
cool.
also, it lets you explore, and bhakti gives you a certain freedom. I mean, bhakti is not a religion. Bhakti is a practice. It means devotion. And that's why you're a devotee. You just might not be a devotee of Krishna. You're a devotee of Jesus. You are a devotee. You are an aspiring devotee. That's how I see you. I see you no different than any other devotee.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, that's how I see it. And I see that, I'm listening. I listen to the Bible a lot. I think you know that about me.
Well, when you shared that was your early recovery experience, I was like, oh my God, it's like, what's the next level that I'm going to identify with this lady? My goodness. I was like, all right, listen, please. I've been wrestling with saying this to you, and please don't put this on the podcast. But I want to share this
because I don't know how to cut this. I don't know
all
how
right,
to cut
well,
this. So
all right.
Say it anyway.
All right, fuck it. Yes, you and I were part of that. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to put this guy.
What is that?
That was my Optimus Prime phone ring message.
You are still a nerd.
I am a silly young man.
I love it.
No, it's got to be there. It's got to be there. Would have been that or some kind of Doctor Who stuff or something.
Amazing.
Optimus works out. But you were one of the girls, and there weren't many, that I was like, she's trouble. She's cute. Oh boy. I crushed on you from afar. And like I alluded to earlier, I like trouble because it confirms my low self-esteem. But of course I don't know that at the time. And I'll never forget when I saw you on Geraldo, and you were like, I smoke pot. So there. And I was like, oh, that's my girl. That's my girl. So, but I'm glad that we've met in this context, and not you and I making ninth step amends to each other.
Oh God, that would have been terrible.
I hope I said that tactfully, because I was
you
struggling.
Did. Don't worry.
Do I want to say this? Well,
I am completely complimented by that. Thank you so much. I never saw myself as anything but like not a lot of guys crushed on me, and if they did, I never knew about it. Maybe because I scared them. I don't know what it is, but I just never had a lot of boyfriends or something. Not really.
Yeah. Well, I think we don't let people in, especially when we're using. I mean, it's like,
Oh no! I mean,
there was an article. I don't have the article anymore, but I have the cover, and you probably know this magazine because it was really big in the hardcore community when this happened.
What, Maximum Rock and Roll?
No, when the New York magazine had that thing, it's called Hardcore Kids.
Yeah.
Now the article, I remember there was a line in there, and this is this isn't like today where journalists like have a clue about punk rock and shit. Like, these are people that are totally outside and wouldn't even try to relate to it other than to just write something usually very disparaging or trying to be shocking. So this guy, he's writing, he says, some of the kids, their face looks like a clenched fist. And I still remember that because it was true. So I definitely had that. And God, even years later when I got clean, I'm going to a hardcore show. I got my game face on, and my wife is looking at me like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm going to a show." She's like, "You look like you're going to beat the hell out of somebody." I was, "No, I'm good."
Yeah, a lot of testosterone going there.
What we used to have to do, And when you look at that now, like, wow, I'm going to go see a concert, but there may be a threat to my physical well-being, and I'm going to pay to do that. It's definitely not like that. I mean, I'm too old to engage in that kind of crap, and recovery definitely is not fine with that. But it was a lot of us we came from broken homes. We came from really a lot of damage, and it's funny. I was seeing a therapist for a little bit, and I remember a photograph got posted on Facebook of the Squatter Rot shows, which for the benefit of the listeners, back in the day, there was this thing called squatting, and it still exists. Well, certainly I know it's very big in Europe. German listeners, I'm sure, are aware of that. Some of them anyway. where it's an abandoned building. People break into the building and they try to habitate, and take it over and maybe even restore it. So there was a lot of that on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and some of the punk rockers. And because a lot of the kids were kicked out of our homes, we were living in those places. That wasn't my story, but I hung out with a lot of folks in that world, and they used to have these concerts that were punk rock bands, and that the money that was collected from the concerts and the show would go to maintain the squad. Most of the time, probably went to drugs and beer, but I don't know that for certain, so I can't say that. But either way, we're going to these shows, and there was a picture of some people I knew from back then when we were young, kind of standing in the rubble of this fucking building. And it just like hit me. I said, here we are, all my friends, and we're using and we're getting high and we're going to shows and we're trying to find out who we are. It's basically we're trying to play out our childhood, the confusion, the violence, and the brokenness. We're
And make
trying
some
to
fucking sense out of it.
we're trying to make sense out of it in the backdrop of the rubble of the Lower East Side.
Oh my God.
And I know you identify with that because that's your story too.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
guess that maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the origins of my attitudes and behaviors that became the disease of addiction. And then maybe we could talk a little bit about the emotional sobriety. What do you think?
Whatever feels natural for you, because this is,
Yeah,
like I said, there's
I
going to be a
think this-
part 3 and
I
a part
think-
4. I'm sure.
I think
of it,
this. I think this kind of works because the direction that kind of I was given in the first part was more of like, how did you find NA? And we
Yeah.
touched a little bit on the Krishna consciousness piece. So let's maybe do like the background.
Yeah, background is important because
I
a lot
think
of
so,
people,
yeah.
especially
Well, I
when
mean,
it plays,
what
when it
is-
plays
what-
to dysfunctional behaviors, and
Right.
it plays into all of that stuff, the things that prime us to, it's the
Absolutely.
biopsychosocial aspect, and
Correct.
how we're brought up and how things happen in our lives, and what
Correct.
frames us, what conditions us into making certain choices, or what traumatize us into
Absolutely.
making certain choices in life, even though we felt we didn't have choices.
Right.
Even if it didn't feel like a choice, it was a choice.
Well, and what I love about like the current group, the home group that I'm a part of, which is an Alcoholics Anonymous group, although I do attend NA meetings on a regular basis, I'm exploring the recovery process through the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous at this point in my recovery.
Nice.
Mainly because that eclectic approach that the 11 step talks about. A lot of members of my group had asked me, how did you find this place? I said, because I have 11 step experience in my life. And they laugh and they get identification. Because not only is that, this is just for the benefit of the newcomer or just somebody who's never even experienced this kind of stuff. We don't just identify with the using, we identify with the recovery and the joy and the freedom that can be found here. And I can't say that enough.
Oh yeah, and that'll be an own episode in itself. I think.
Yeah.
I think we should do like a one episode of just what our recovery is and how, and that might be the sequel to this second part
Okay.
here.
Well, I was
or the
Please.
fourth, whatever. But what you were, I actually forgot what I was going to say. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just kind of like with that said that I'm, the AA literature is new to me. What I really love is one of the things that we do in my home group is one of the nights we call it the story time, where we're guided by a facilitator. We're not a conventional AA meeting. So we're guided by a facilitator. If we're asked to speak, we're doing it by the book in the sense that it's what was it like, what happened, and where are you now?
What you doing now?
Right?
Yeah.
And that still works. And the importance of that is it keeps me on track. It keeps us on track. It allows us to have a clear message, right? So what was it like? I alluded to it earlier. I was a lost little boy who was born into a family of addiction. My mother is the product of rape. She does not know who her father is. She was raised by her mother. Her mother, due to the social stigma at that time period, they grew up. My mother is British. She grew up in England, Stoke-on-Trent, which is in Manchester. Very rough.
Oh, my very best friend lives there and has the Christian temple in Stoke.
Oh, nice. That's
cool.
We'll
have to introduce.
I would love to go. I'd love to go. Anyway, it's a hard working class. Like Monty Python has that every sperm is sacred in the movie. The Monty Python's Meaning of Life, and it says it's not Stoke, but it's a town similar to that, and so you could say Stoke-on-Trent, the third world. And I actually went to see that movie with my mother when it came out. It was kind of awkward, and she laughed, and I was like, why did she laugh at that? Because that's where she came from. My mom came from really harsh conditions. I want to put a pin in that for later, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that my mom is a survivor. My mom is tough. My mom is beautiful. My mom is nutty, but I love my mom. And it's taken me a long time to even call her mom. For years, it was mother. And that's my mommy. Yeah. My mommy is from Stoke. And my mommy comes from a place of feeling lost herself. Right. Because we can practice.
So that trauma is.
There you go. Yeah. It's the origin.
Genetic. It's bio.
So we got dad, who is an Irish American, grew up in the Bronx. Dad, his father hated the wife. They hated each other. So dad the grandpa would just go and work 3 or 4 jobs so that I'm responsible. I just don't want to be around this crazy bitch or this family that I can't can't manage. It's an absentee father. And my dad, of all the children, was, in my view and what I've seen, was the strongest of all of them. Thank you, Dad. He took care of all of them. He had a brother, because of the neglect, came down with spinal meningitis, was not treated, suffered brain damage. Through that, also died of this disease many years later of alcoholism. My father had to claim his body. He died homeless on the streets of the Bronx. This is when my father.
My uncle died homeless on the street in the Bronx. Unbelievable.
And alcoholism and dysfunction is all through my father's family. My father, he was an alcoholic. However, he never had a program in his life.
Did he continue drinking or did he stop?
No,
drinking?
he would have periods of stopping, but he was a dry drunk. He was a very scary man, or I don't know, I'm doing him a disservice. He behaved in a very scary way. That's an honest appraisal for me.
Well, you're talking from the child's point of view. I mean, when you're a child and you got an authoritarian, alcoholic, Irish Catholic, man, probably maybe with a belt in his hand. He was
just this. And I can honestly say this without reservation. They did the best they could. I'm not even talking about raising a child yet, just to being alive as a person. So my father, out of all the kids, I think was the most triumphant because he got out of there. He was learning disabled, as I am. And I'm only just coming to terms with it. So he was called dumb and stupid and all these things. And he didn't get through high school, but
me neither.
How can somebody who's supposedly dumb and stupid leave high school and get a GED and then get a job with the phone company?
Yeah.
Not a stupid man. This is where we can reflect back on things like that and say, probably dyslexic, probably ADHD, probably a whole bunch of stuff. But back then,
traumatized, all kinds of stuff.
Back then, PTSD. Back then, you're just dumb.
Yeah, you're just dumb. You're just dumb. Exactly.
You're just dumb. You're just lazy.
And not even back then. Back then, with our times as kids, I'm
getting there. I'm getting there. Yeah. I'm getting there. that hasn't gone away.
No, I think today it's better though, isn't it? Has it gotten better?
It's a lot better. The awareness is there. That's what I think is most key. Right. Our program even says this. Awareness is key. The origins are key. Now, I'm going to stress this a lot throughout this piece. It's not, now some other folks have those same origins. They didn't necessarily become an addict. I did, you know. Now, this is more theoretical, but of what my clinical background tells me, what they call it the ACE, adverse child experience, childhood experiences. Yes, a certain number of these things statistically will lead to the person becoming an addict. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, we got our
And there and
things.
you
You
did
know, those are
mention
the elements.
the biological piece. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I kind of have that sort of going on in the background while we're talking. But what I would like to concentrate on, what we have that awareness going that makes us biologically or bodily different, like the big book tells us. Perhaps those things came from the trauma. They affect the nervous system. That's you look at ACA literature, the big book of ACA,
Yeah.
the
I've
doctor's
worked those
opinion,
steps.
PTSD, how that affects on a neurological level. There is a biological piece to this, but the big book
Have
even
you
tells
worked
us this. No,
have you worked the steps of
I,
ACI?
I only attended the meetings and read the
It'll
literature.
change
I
your
have not
life.
worked the steps. I
It'll
did
change your
find,
life.
well, I went to the Bhakti group that does it.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
So
The
they
Bhakti
have the
ACI.
book. I kind of have to think because I like to have the physical book in front of me, which I have.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
But the page numbers on the PDF that they go off
Are
of,
different.
they're different. So I have
Yes.
to kind of straighten that out for myself, or maybe somebody could help me. I got to start asking for more help. I'm like, I got to figure this out, dude. Ask somebody to help me. Come on, Robert.
Oh, hell yeah. You and I, we
You
can,
know?
if you ever have time and want to, we'll work the steps of ACA together. I've been through them a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, please. I'm open to it. I
Yeah.
bought the yellow book first. And I
Yeah.
remember reading that on the train ride home.
You mean
Oh
the
my God, I was a
workbook? The
mess.
yellow book?
I was,
Yeah.
I almost, I was, I mean, when I say a mess for the listeners, I was being opened up. It was a good thing, but
Yeah.
it was
good
very
mess.
dramatic. It was very dramatic.
Yeah.
It was more identification. I mean, the ACA recovery, that made my fourth step in Narcotics Anonymous look like a pimple on a fucking like on a dog's dick. It made it look like nothing, And
Well,
I was,
that's what I
"Oh my
learned.
God."
That's what I learned with 20 years in sobriety. I learned that most of my emotional torment came from the ACA, and so I couldn't get any better in recovery. I
Right.
couldn't get any better. And why couldn't I get any better? Because I wasn't dealing with the issues that I had as a child. I wasn't dealing with them. The 4-step couldn't help me. The 8th, 9th step couldn't help me. I mean, of course, all the steps helped me to
I
the
think it
best
builds
of its
us a
ability.
foundation to then address those deeper issues.
Absolutely, because I
Because
needed to
again,
get my life together
go
first.
back. We got to go back to abstinence.
Oh
We
my
gotta go
God,
back to
totally.
abstinence.
That's the whole thing.
Get
I
to
don't
the
think I could
abstinence.
have.
Those steps get us. I heard in a wonderful ACA meeting I went to on Zoom. They said we start out as addicts and then we wind up here. And I was like, I get it. I'm still an addict. I don't want people to misconstrue that, but you get to the deeper stuff. However, what I've
Yeah.
learned for me, because I
But
can
not
get
everybody
very
needs that. Some people don't
no,
want to
not
deal with that.
everybody needs that. Not everybody, and I get that.
I do.
But I do. And
Me
I
too.
had a Narcotics Anonymous sponsor. The way I was carrying on with years clean. Now we're kind of going all over the place, so I don't know.
I know. Sorry.
It's cool.
It's a natural conversation what we're
But
having
I
here,
think
kind of.
I mean, I'm more open to it being natural, but it's wherever you want to go. I don't know whether I should go back to sort
Yeah,
of
go back to where we were talking about. We could probably wind that back in, I guess, because we're starting to talk about your childhood, and
so
and how
okay
your parents
with the childhood piece. So you got mom and dad that they got their stuff, and then my mom comes to this country in 1964 after having an affair with an older married man, which didn't work out. And what do we do as addicts? We run. It'll be better in the United States. We bring us wherever we go. And God bless Doreen, young girl who had the courage to cross an ocean to come here.
That's your mom.
That's my mom. I love you, Mom.
Queen.
And You know, it's good. I say I love you, Mom, after every sentence like that. This is helpful for me.
Is your mom still around?
She's still here. She's 83 years old. She lost my dad in 2020. She's now she sees a grief counselor. I'm praying for deeper therapy for her, but she goes religiously without fail.
Nice.
So she comes to this country. She was an au pair. She's a young girl. She didn't like the family, because she wants to be wild and free. She's a young girl. So she's like, fuck these people. She found a friend who was also from England, and they both got jobs working at a nursing home. I don't know what they were doing. Like, not a they weren't nurses, but I think they just cleaned the patients. I don't know, something like a medical aid, I guess.
Bed pants and stuff like
that.
Yeah.
And her friend was alcoholic. Her boyfriend, Chuck, was my dad's drinking buddy. And that's how she met my dad. And my dad, when he met her, and he was kind of on a place where he wanted to improve his life, so he stopped drinking. And a lot of men do this. Hey, I found a good looking woman. I love her. She's in my life. I better get a decent job. Now. I better stop drinking, get a decent. He got his GED, got in the phone company. It's so funny how these patterns play out, because his father bought him a house. My father bought me this place. Let's see, there's the patterns are there, that's a good pattern. That's a beautiful pattern. And then my dad, he's the swinging bachelor. He wants to kind of get serious, but he's got all his childhood trauma. He's got all his unresolved stuff. And like what we do in our society, and I this is what I really love in Krishna consciousness, when they talk about the material realm. I like the word realm for some reason. I really enjoy that, because when I used to think of material world, I thought about it in terms of like, oh, money and property, prestige. That's part of it. But in Krishna consciousness, when we talk about material realm, we talk about the physical existence. We talk about that I can't put you on a pedestal because you're a human. You will die. So even just
in a disease condition, just being a human is
even in that there's entropy. You're down with quantum physics. I told you I listened to the other podcast. You're down with this entropy. It happens.
I'm so down with that. Yeah.
You can't, so that I can't rely on those things. So that's the deeper metaphysical piece. My dad, he's trying to be like, hey, I lived in a fucked up family. There was no food. There was no clean clothes. I got a house. I got clean clothes. I got a nice car. I got a nice girl. I got a good job. I'm going to be cured. No cure, no peace. Dry drunk. Scared little boy. Hurt. Wrecked. Trying desperately to find peace. The right thing. Yeah. And failing. And then I come along. And this is where one of my first memories of the disease was when I looked in a photo album of my family. And I see a picture of my dad and his friends. He's skinny. He's got a nice black suit on. He looks fucking great. He's got these dudes around him, his boys and shit. They're cutting up. They're jumping over fire. The what do they call it? The fire hydrant. They're like leapfrogging over each other and shit. They're fucking. It's like guys, being guys. And I'm like, wow, he's like a dude, and he's happy. And then I turn the pages, a few pages over, and there's a picture someone took of me, my dad, my mom. I got a big smile on my face. I'm a little kid. My mom's trying to smile, and my dad has this sullen look on his face. I don't want to be in this fucking picture. And I took this on as a little kid, and I said, I put that frown on his face. I did that.
Robert.
My be me here. I did that. I'm wrong. I'm bad. And then I have inherited the learning disabilities, the dyslexia. I'm a very smart man. And I was a very smart child. However, because my writing skills weren't so great, and they still aren't great now. And this is why, again, I'm so happy you got honest about your learning disabilities and your neurodiversity.
Yeah,
because I had to come up against that.
It's my life
double
struggle.
Digits of clean time. And I kind of cracked it open a little bit, but I don't want to take the credit. God is revealing all this stuff. And this is where I'm going to get more into the emotional balance piece, emotional sobriety. Whereas NA's gray book, if somebody really wants to dig deep into the history, talks about emotional recovery. So for those NAers that kind of get stuck on language, as I have, I'm not exempt from that. I kind of was like that, and it hurt me a lot in the long run. And initially, it was good to be a purist, but over time, I had to grow. I like that they have that in that book, that they talk about emotional recovery, because we need that. Because that's I read it in the last podcast.
To maintain any kind of spiritual,
you have
to.
Joy has to be. I know it sounds kind of, maybe almost paradoxical to say it. You must have joy. You must have joy.
You must have joy. That sounds German.
Joy.
You must have joy in your life.
You really do. I mean, for me, I know I have to. Because what the hell am I doing all this for?
Yes.
Just to sound clever at the meeting? Just to puff up my ego? I want to be happy, joyous, and free. I mean, I'm grateful that I can deliver. I'm articulate. I can tie things together. I can transmit concepts.
You're very bright.
Application.
You've always been very bright.
It's
anyone who's a comic book creep is a bright kid.
Let's
face it.
And I got my revenge when the X-Men became popular, so I felt good about that. Now I don't even like any of that stuff.
Yeah,
because I left it all behind to listen to the Stooges, grow my hair long, and get fucking laid. But but everything comes back together, which is a good thing. There's all balance. Where was I at? So, I'm taking this attitude on board that I'm the cause of their distress, my parents. I'm struggling in school with undiagnosed learning disabilities. I am put into a special school. I think it was preschool. They thought I may have been on the spectrum, and I am. I mean, I'm on a diagnosed, but I know that I'm on the spectrum. And I think because back then it was the stigma of the short bus, and you're fucking retarded. I think
I
my
was on the short
family.
bus, man. I had to go on the short bus.
Yeah, well, I did too. And I remember a kid at the school. He actually bit me. He bit my arm. I still remember that. He bit me. Now I'm reflecting back, and this is all new stuff that's come up. And this is what showed me my first ability of leadership. I'm in this special school. It's called James E. Allen. It was through BOCES.
Yeah, BOCES. I went to BOCES.
And then that was a stigma. Oh, you fucking retard,
BOCES, you're a Botart. That's what they called me, a Botart. Because you go to BOCES.
I mean, thank God I went through this before I hit elementary school.
That happened. That happened to me in middle school.
Well, I got a little bit of that then too when I was in special math class and other stuff. So believe me, there was the isolation.
So much shame.
So
much shame.
And so much shame. Exactly.
Oh my God. So much shame and embarrassment.
Here we go. I'm in this room with these kids. And as we know today, there's a spectrum. So there's the guy who, bites people. Who can't really, can't even articulate. The functioning is lower, and I'm not like that. And then there's some who have a Down syndrome. So you're back then they just lump you all together.
Oh yeah, totally.
And
I was always wondering, my God, is it that bad?
So beautiful?
Am I that bad?
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was like, oh my God, But what was so beautiful and pure about little Robert, oh my God, I love this kid. He was, and I'm talking about myself in the third person, this ACA recovery kicking in, where I'm sitting in front of a TV with these kids. I guess they probably just turn the TV on and let them zone out to the TV while we drink our coffee or whatever, give the teachers a break. And it was Sesame Street. And they would have, how they have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
9, 10, 11, 12.
I know you would remember it because you're as nutty as I am. I knew it. I knew you'd know that. And what I did, I don't know where this was God. I'm sitting with these kids, and as the numbers would appear on the screen, I would lean into I guess it's stimming. I would lean into the to the screen and point and say 1. And then I would look to the other kids. And then they started to do it. They'd follow my lead. And then when it would go 2, we would all point 2, 3. And we learned our numbers 4, 5. We learned our numbers. That memory has been creeping up. I've been clean and sober for 16 years. It's come to the surface, I don't know, last week.
Wow.
You know? Now, let's fast forward. Let's talk about emotional recovery, emotional sobriety. The term comes from Bill Wilson's article, and you know this, but this is the benefit of the
Yes,
listeners.
of course.
This comes from Bill Wilson's writings. It's not in the big book. It is in the Grapevine, which, for those who don't know, Alcoholics Anonymous has a newspaper. It's called the Grapevine. Ha ha ha. Grapevine drinking. It's very funny. And he would answer.
And for the Krishna conscious people, it's like magazine Back to Godhead.
Yeah, there you go. Or if you're a
Yeah.
Muslim, what was
I
it?
don't know.
Final
I
call.
have no idea.
When
Is
I
it
was
called
drinking,
that?
when I was drinking, it was last call. But that's another story.
Let's go.
But anyway, I'm not a Muslim. I just know that. That's the folks who are connected to Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam. They have that magazine. That if you ever go uptown, you see a dude with a bow tie, he's going to try to hand you that magazine. It's actually pretty good. I draw from many sources. So, what was I going to say? Emotional recovery. So Bill Wilson, for those who don't know, was the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love what you guys have on your website, Bhakti Recovery. You have him, and you talk about his background in AA. And he suffered from depression.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing happened was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He would answer. Bill would often be asked questions, and people would write him letters. And somebody who was also going through a bout of depression wrote him a letter saying, essentially, I'm not quoting it exactly, I'm going through depression. Can the 12 steps help? And it was Bill who's responding, being of service to this, actually was able to find the answer for that. And he looks at the self, and in essence, he came to the understanding, and I agree with this across the board for all addicted people. Ultimately, our problem is an unhealthy dependency on people, places, things, and events. If they do not go our way, I'm a colossal piece of shit. If I don't get the job that I want, I'm a failure as a life form. You see, that's very hurtful thinking. Of course, it's going to lead to a depression. So when he kind of understood that piece, then he moves forward and he looks at the St. Francis prayer, which really goes on about being selfless. Now,
St. Francis prayer is Bhakti.
Yes, you better believe it.
100%.
Better believe
it's my favorite prayer. It's one of my very favorite prayers. It saved my life, that prayer.
And and this article, and knowing what Bill was going through, and I'm going through this at 15 years clean, just like he had 15 years of sobriety when he was writing this and being honest. Again, this is a theme that I think is running through our conversation. The more honest we become about these kind of struggles, the better we get, and the more honest our message is, and the more that other people can come in and find what we found. Oh, yeah. Because if we come off like we're trying to be perfect or something, that's not attractive. I know when I think somebody's better than me, I don't want to be around you.
I think people are attracted by that, but I don't know if that's an attraction that's a spiritual attraction rather than a material attraction.
I think it has the potential to be both.
Yeah, well, the thing is this. I truly believe that, like you said, as soon as we're born into this world, we are in a diseased state the moment we come into this world.
Absolutely.
Now, whether that's being an addict or whatever, but in the Bhakti sense, we are in a diseased state of mind, conditioned
Correct.
from lives before, from the life now, in this age of Kali, where it's the age of quarrel and destruction, and this is fact. So I think people are looking for that perfect thing because people don't want to suffer. But you can't suffer. You can't not suffer until you realize,
Exactly.
until you're self-realized, until you realize yourself that you are in a disease state, and there will never be that perfect,
Right.
space. It's a process.
It is
We're
a
in this
process.
process. We're in
Absolutely.
this process trying to get better. We're in this
Yeah.
process. We're in a spiritual dilemma here. This place is, Earth is a middle planet. It's kind of hellish. At least for me, it is.
Sure. And
But
I mean, I
bringing that
find
into a 12-step point of view,
Mhm.
I was blessed with, having this specific disease of
Right.
addiction, because this specific disease of addiction taught me that I have a diseased condition and that I have to surrender to that disease. I have to surrender. And without surrender, there would be no way that I can move forward. So moving forward in my life through understanding that I have a diseased condition only helped me. But then, like you're talking about emotional sobriety now, same
Yeah.
thing happened to me. At a certain point, I was still in a diseased condition, and I will always be in a diseased
Correct.
condition, always trying to peel away that other layer of onion. And I'm not going to get it until I surrender to every single one of those things.
Yeah, it becomes a deeper surrender. And
Yeah.
I like where you said that, not only just a specific disease, but a deadly disease. So
Oh,
it's kind of
God,
the
yes.
blessing of having a gun pointed at the back of your head.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what? If I don't do this, I get shot. And
It's exactly like that. It's
it's
force.
just that
Beaten into submission.
that simple, And
Yeah.
and as a Christian, there's a pastor I met recently in my neighborhood out here in Queens. And I love his approach. He says, I treat my congregation as if it was a triage in a hospital.
Hmm.
And that is in the Christian view is, we've fallen. We are sinful.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I kind of like that I can sort of travel between all these different worlds
Faiths.
in the
Yeah.
Krishna world and the different faiths. Because sin, that word doesn't have dominance over me. I'm
Me
not
neither.
afraid of that. I'm open to
neither.
say, I'm your servant and I am your sinner.
That's it. That's bhakti right there. That's Christianity right there. That's the essence of all religion.
And also losing the fear of death.
We're going to die anyway. Yeah, it's
Well,
like,
but it's, what are you going to sit there and think about that until the day you go? That's the essence of all the financial insecurity, all the other things. Like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Yeah, you are. All is
Yep.
well. But that's where it gets to the deeper levels. That's episode,
yes.
I don't know what, but that's,
Yes.
but I like to give little hints of that because there's hope. It's not just, I got to struggle every day. So, no, if it was like that, forget it. I wouldn't be involved with this. I
Right.
would not be involved in it. If it was just like, I gotta, and I was doing that and this is where the emotional sobriety, like I said, I gave some background on the literature and Bill's story with that. But now here's Robert's story with that. Robert got clean again in 2007. He's very grateful. He's happy. He meets a beautiful girl. And this one is not on meds. This one is not a former sex worker. This one, and I'm not saying that to be rude to anybody that's your story, but I don't go to the dented can aisle anymore. The program's taught me that. I'm not here to heal somebody. That's God's job. And that's it. Now, if you've experienced those things, and I've had was molested too. I went through all kinds of hell, but unless somebody's, kind of healthy, I don't really want that in my life. Doesn't mean I can't be of service to you or whatever. And that's clear lines. It's like codependency recovery talking there, right? So my wife, which later became my wife, I met her while I was working. This is so funny. I go back into my career. I was in video post-production, like I had mentioned before, and I was able to get one of my first jobs coming back into the working world I had been a freelancer at the Fox News channel, and I had worked there while I was using. And I said, well, God was beautiful. It gave me an opportunity to work there again clean as a freelancer. And I just had, even though I hadn't worked a fourth step formally in my life, I started to see the function of the fourth step in that environment because I don't identify with the product that Fox News Channel produces, but I do like the paycheck. And then I started to see, well, how can I view this experience, not just being clean, but through the eyes of recovery, right? Because sober means more than just not using. It's a sober view of life, a life as it is, not as I want it to be, right? So I'm looking around. I work with really awesome people, technicians and stuff. A lot of them don't necessarily buy into what Fox is, but they're good people. They pay their bills. They're good folks, salt of the earth. We got each other's back. We're doing a real good job. And there's this really cute girl who works at the desk that I see every day. And one day she's not in she was a security guard, and she's not in her uniform, and she's in some kind of rock and roll kind of regalia, like a studded necklace around her neck. And I was like, shit, maybe I got a chance. I'll work this fucking punk rock angle, and I'll see where it goes. But you know what was beautiful about it, though? I can say this with all honesty. When there's no motive, because there really was. I mean, yeah, I want to get some. I'm not lying. I mean, I'm shallow like that. She's hot. But the approach wasn't like trying to be anything other than myself. And that's beautiful. That's a recovery, right? The real value is in being ourselves.
Right.
And here I am, and I'm, like I said, I'm a conditioned member. I'm going to meetings. I'm praying. I'm reading the literature. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I was coming up on 2 years clean. I was writing my fourth step at the time. And I met this lady, and she was former military. She had a similar background to me, not with drugs, but just, tough family. She had enough sense in her mind to be like, you know what? I'm getting out of the hood. I'm going to the military. And she lived in Japan for many years. She came back to New York. She wound up staying with her. Things didn't work out. The GI Bill, they really fucked the veterans over with that. So, that's a little soapbox. Sorry if I'm political, but fuck the VA. And she found herself just working there, and very smart lady. And I fell in love with her, and we started hanging out. And I'll never forget just being so honest when I met her. And I just was like, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Like, I never did that. My shit was like, you got a Ramones t-shirt. Let's like hook up, and then you move in with me. Like it was always insanity. This was like an innocent boy meets girl kind of deal. I never had that.
Nice.
Shit. When I was I used to watch The Godfather and dream that I could be like Al Pacino when he meets the girl in Italy and there's the grandparents and shit. I was like, I want that, man. I always like some chick in a bar and we're all fucked up, like I want this. So I actually wanted healthy things. I just didn't know how to obtain them.
How to do it. Yeah, of course.
So I did. I'm grateful for being involved with this young lady, and we eventually got married. But there were some things that I had not addressed. And as I said, I was just on the fourth step. I thought I was doing everything right. No relationships in the first year and all that stuff that we're told in the program. But there was some things deep down that I didn't have access to at the time. And I'm not going to excuse my behavior. I'm not. But that is the truth for me. And I was fronting for a long time, trying to come off that I was happy, joyous, and free, when I was scared, overwhelmed, and really just frustrated.
I'm trying to figure it out.
And trying to figure it out on my own. But yet I'm not telling anybody. And I don't even tell God. And I'm thinking, I've read the books, I've done the studying, I've done this. Why am I fucked up? Why am I miserable? I eventually completed all 12 steps with a sponsor and going through it and all that stuff. But there was stuff that I would not get honest about. And a lot of it was the main crux of it, at least when it comes to the relationship with my wife, was I needed more solitude and more time to be with myself before I had someone move in with me.
Sure.
I was too afraid to even, and then it was kind of like, well, you're living here now. We're married. It's like, oh shit, I'm in too deep, and I feel like I'm drowning, and I got to put on this fucking role that's stifling me and killing me, and and then on top of that, I did dream of being a counselor. Right now, listen, 99.9% people, and this is not a figure that's known, but this is just my take on it.
Yeah.
I heard this from Sandy Beach, who was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, whose talks can be found on YouTube. I fucking love this dude. He passed away a long time ago, but my God, we are sitting on the shoulders of giants, our predecessors. And I'm not saying he's a god, but he definitely had a god, and he carried some really good stuff. And I learned a lot from listening to his talks. I don't know where I just went off the track with that. Oh, he said it best. He said, a lot of us, when we get sober, we automatically think we should become a counselor. And he said, I don't necessarily discourage that. I do think this, though. That's a good sign that your humanity has returned, because you want to give back what you found here. Now, there is a way to do that. Obviously, it's built into the 12 steps. We were service. That's the 12th step upon the awakening. Carry this message to other addicts, practice these principles in all our affairs, right? So I did want to be a counselor, but and I went through the motions of that. I went to, and I'm overloading myself, typical addict. So now I got the marriage. Now I got the meat. Now I got
we have to have the degrees. Now we have to do this.
Now,
and now we have to do
now
that.
I got it. Now I'm working full time in a very flourishing TV career.
Yeah.
I've left Fox. I've got a full-time gig. I'm a supervisor. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life, and I'm unhappy, and I'm miserable, and I'm getting up early to be at work at 7:00 in the morning. Then I go to school after, and it's only 2 nights a week, but I'm going to 5 meetings a week. I am overloaded. I am shot, and I am not happy. And I'm like, well, and it's the typical addict scenario of, I'll be happy when.
Oh my God.
When.
Guilty as charged. Same thing.
That is the most insidious loop. One of the circles of hell, of the insidious loops of this disease. And I stayed in that for a long time. And then I'm finally progressing. And I have to come to a place where, do I stay in TV or not? And I finally got everything I wanted in TV. And I still felt, I don't know, but part of me really was telling me, you need to stay here and let all that other shit go. I wouldn't listen to that voice. I wouldn't listen to it. So as a direct result of that, I got myself in a lot of trouble at work. I was arguing with clients. Like, I was basically a dry drunk, and I got myself suspended. Then I quit. Then I came back, and then I got fired. And now that career is in flames. That bridge has been burned. And
What'd
I'm
you get
clean.
yourself fired for? If I may ask.
Well,
maybe should I poke into that bee's nest or not?
No, that's cool. Put Robert's feet to the fire and get him to be honest, because he doesn't want to repeat those mistakes. When I got suspended, oh good God, I could make a show of remorse that would make you fucking want to give me a fucking Academy Award. And I weaponized my recovery to be so deceitful with that fucking remorse and that amends, which was not an amends. It was more, let me see, get out of jail free card and fuck you up even more.
Yes.
How about that? So we're getting honest, we're getting deep. This is good. This is a lot of healing for a lot of people other than myself going on here. This is one of the reasons I'm even sharing this, because I know somebody else has been through this, or is going to go through this. And some people, you can avoid this. How about that? Because we do gain wisdom here. The wisdom.
If they're a real addict, they're not going to avoid it.
But they might have to get burned first.
You gotta experience it first.
Icarus is going down in flames, baby.
I don't know how many things I never listened to that I should have listened to. I think everything.
Well, I came up with a good song behind that, and the title of it is "I Should Have Prayed More." That was the
I should have prayed more.
Great lyrics came out of that
Yeah.
pain, but
Oh my God.
so I came back, and because I was resentful that I got suspended, because I cursed out a client, I
Mhm.
said something like, I was on the phone, I didn't put it on hold, and they were like, it was a dumb question in my view. But none of, I'm at the job. I have no, or even to say that to any human being, I have no right to do that. That's
Yeah.
totally out of line. And I said something like, well, you don't know how to do your fucking job. And
Mm.
I didn't realize they heard me say that. Now,
So they complained.
so they called not only did they complain, their boss, when they called me, they said that woman was reduced to tears by that statement. What do you guys in Krishna say? The mouth? Right? That's why we take Prashadam.
Yeah, to
Eat.
control
You know?
the mouth.
Yeah.
The urges of the tongue. The urges of the tongue.
And I remember and that came right into my mind when I got suspended. I was like, oh, I guess I should have listened to those people. God was trying to tell you something, but he loves you anyways, even though you're a knucklehead. So
Restraint of speech. What is it? Restraint of speech and pen.
right, that's the big book. Correct.
Yeah.
So
I think that's based in Christianity, actually, is it? Or is it just big book?
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not that, I'm still new to studying.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's definitely part of it. So I come back, and then I get pissed off because I don't have the supervisor position anymore. I have the same money, that my shift has changed. And I can't just admit, it's like, dude, you're responsible. You fucked your life up, man. These people are giving you a second chance. Shut the fuck up. I wouldn't do it. And I want to lash out. And I want to make you regret that you even fucking said my name out loud, let alone have me here. That's how sick I am at that point. And my poor wife, she's like, what are you doing? My sponsor's like, there's more than just you in your life now, Robert. What are you doing? I got this. I'm going to show these fucking people. I'm going to set myself on fire.
Don't you know who I am?
Yeah. I'm going to take the poison and kill all of you. Resentment is the number one offender. Right? Yeah. And I remember
I think I'm a champion at that. I'm a
there was
champion at
I
that.
think, and I'm just being obnoxious. I'm pushing my fucking. I'm a member of the Push Your Luck Club. I'm fucking with everybody, fucking with the bosses. I'm like going around with a scowl on my face. I'm being intimidating. I'm bullying. I'm just a fucking asshole. And my sponsor that I had at the time, and you talked about that childhood stuff. Oh, God bless this guy for saying this. And this is how I got introduced to ACA, actually, was through all this period. Because we act out in the workplace. We play these dramas out.
Yeah.
And if there's no awareness, this is what happens when there's no awareness. So the sponsor I had at the time, his name was Juan. He's now a full ACA, full time. And he asked me, he's like, do you qualify? I said, yeah. So we started going. There was an Al-Anon meeting that had an ACA focus. It was called Trust and Spirituality. They have a meeting presence on Zoom. Anybody interested? Check it out.
Yeah, I'm interested, actually.
They have a meditation.
Hook me up, bro.
I'll give you that information.
All right.
And we used to go when it was the physical meeting, and I opened myself up to that. I can't say I applied a lot of stuff that was going on, but I had an idea like, oh shit, this is deeper stuff here. I need this.
Excuse me.
And I'll never forget what he said to me. Juan said, Robert, when you tell me about all the things and how you're acting out at your job, I see the hurt little boy, the inability to communicate, the frustration. I see the illness. But you know what everybody else sees? You're just being a dick.
Oh, God.
And I was like, thank you. And I continued to be a dick. And I remember and I wanted them to fire me. This was my master plan. My plan, not God's will, my will. Get them to fire me so I can go on unemployment. I think I'm like Tyler Durden from fucking Fight Club or some shit. You know, like when Edward Norton punches himself in the face and he fucking gets all the paychecks and shit. I said, that's what I'm going to base my life on. And yeah, I mean, I didn't.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
6,874. Good idea.
You know, let's. Oh boy. So There was a woman I didn't get along with who worked with us. Nobody liked her, but it's no excuse to fuck with people. But I found a reason.
Your
Such as
mouth is getting dirtier and dirtier as we get into this.
I know. I mean, we're going to hell together. So we're revisiting it, and we're not living there. We're just viewing.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
viewing a corpse. We're a coroner viewing a corpse. What was the cause of spiritual death?
Forensic.
Here?
We're like
really.
forensic, spiritual forensics.
Forensics file, you know, and we used to have this because I worked in a control room, and you could punch up all video from all over the place. So I didn't like this lady. So rather than call her the "see you next Tuesday" word, because I figured I can't push it that far, I figured, well, what's close?
I never heard that before.
What's closest to the "see you next Tuesday" as an image? I said, well, there's this one company that they always use a floating fish, and that has music, and we use it to check the sound levels and stuff. I said, well, you know, a CUNT and a fish. I said, yeah, she's a fish, a fucking goddamn fish. And I'm telling my coworkers, because I need an audience when I'm an asshole to egg me on in my fucking insanity. So I routed a picture of this fish to every monitor that I could possibly route it to in the whole facility. Even in the manager's offices, everywhere.
Oh my God.
That was the day I got fired.
Yeah, I imagine. And were you surprised?
Oh, not at all. They had the letter written and and thank God they were, you know, God was merciful, because the letter didn't say, you know, he was being an asshole and we got rid of him. We said, due to economic or whatever restructuring, blah, blah, blah. Robert's been here, blah, blah, blah. And the first word out of the boss's mouth was, don't worry, you'll get your unemployment. He brought me in the office. That's the first thing he said. Don't worry, you'll get your unemployment.
Oh my God.
I said, I don't need to say anything else. So I signed a disclosure and all this other shit. And I'm sitting on the sidewalk, kind of like Felix Unger with his belongings from my locker. I call my wife. She's pissed.
Of course,
my wife is because I think in her culture, because she's from Dominica, what, you know, so
in
West
the Virgin
Indies.
Islands. Yeah. Is it the Virgin Islands?
No, Dominica is a very small country. People often confuse it with Dominican Republic. It's not.
No,
Dominica is near like the West Indies.
Yeah. Okay.
I noticed part of that culture, and I think maybe it's because of the British thing, very reserved and very like a closed book with their feelings. So she wasn't happy, but she didn't say anything. And in my sick mind, I was like, hey, you don't complain, then there's no problem. You know,
out of sight, out of mind.
You know, yeah, you know, and meanwhile, it's like using without using, having a head full of recovery, and living a dirty life.
Yeah,
that's painful, and being stretched apart, being torn apart.
Oh my God. Well, just like, let's just say like authentic, and sometimes in order to find our authenticity, I think it's so important to know that when we find our authenticity, is when we're really truly free.
Yeah,
and when we have people in our lives, and when we have people in our lives who will support that authenticity, when we allow the people in our lives who are going to uplift us, the people in our lives who are going to encourage us, the people in our lives that are going to be our champions, and the thing is, coming from dysfunctional families, we always look and find people who are going to. Well, I did at least. Yeah, and a lot of addicts do at least. We find the people who are going to still reinstate the fact that we're not good enough. We don't perform properly for them in their eyes. At least I had that in my marriage. He's not. Yeah,
I had that in my other relationships before my wife.
I had my way. He had his way. I had my way, and they didn't really match. And so I bent over backwards.
Yeah.
Totally not authentic to who I was or who I ever wanted to be. I didn't know who the frick I wanted to be. I had no idea who I wanted to be. I figured, well, he looks like he's got it all figured out. I'll just be like him.
Right.
And then it just didn't work. It didn't work. And I was miserable. Just miserable.
Well, I think that's the piece that's trying to break through, like the real person, the real you. Yeah. Is trying to surface to the conscious level. Like, I know all this in hindsight, But let me just kind of put the other piece. I'll try to make it brief and then get to the really good stuff, the recovery piece, right? But you need the bitter. What do they say? You need the sour with the sweet. So we're still in some of the sour part. So I'm in a Narcotics Anonymous third step meeting, and I'm struggling with, well, I got unemployment. I'm gonna have to get another job. I don't really want to go back to TV. Well, I'm done with all my KSAC stuff, drug counselor classes. Let's do it. But normally to
What
get
year was
into this 2015, I believe.
Yeah, okay. So a
It's
couple
still
years
pretty
have passed.
It's still pretty fresh.
Yeah, but a couple
I've
years
laid
have
off.
passed.
I'm doing this. I'm in this meeting. The third step, and I'm struggling with like, well, I don't want to be, because the guy in my circumstances and educational background at that point was just high school. You're gonna have to do an unpaid internship, and then from there, hopefully, you can find paid work. And I'm like struggling because I want to be paid. I get paid for every work I do. Fuck that. Well, dude, you're gonna sit here and then wait till your unemployment runs out, and then you're gonna be fucked. Might as well turn it over. What is your will, God? Take the internship. And I did. And I'm feeling a lot of anxiety while I'm doing it because I'm still uncertain that I want to do this or not. But I got nowhere else to go. So I go. And this is where later on it became apparent to me. I can be a counselor. I have great verbal skills. I can apply the techniques that we learn in counseling, motivational interviewing, and things of that nature, doing cognitive behavioral therapy, reframing, all the good stuff. I'm great with concepts, and I'm great with applying them. I learned how to do that through the 12 steps, although I didn't apply them. I got myself into trouble, but I got a chance. I can do this, right? But my writing skills are crap. My spelling has always been terrible.
Me
Now
too.
we're grateful, today with modern technology, but I'm still kind of slow. So you gotta, when you're in an outpatient setting or any of these places, you gotta hustle. It's basically like fast food recovery. You got clients back to back to back to back to back, and then you're responsible to have a conversation with them, do the paperwork,
And do the paperwork.
do the
Oh,
treatment plan
God.
next, and I'm struggling. And I don't know why I'm in anxiety. It's like that same anxiety I had at the detox. Why? And because I just don't have access to that stuff yet from when I was a kid. I gravitated to the technical stuff because you didn't need a lot of math and you didn't need to write or spell that well. That's why I was in TV in the first place. That's why it actually fit. And I was like, oh shit, I made a mistake. But there's no going back. I burned the bridge. So I move forward. I get my internship. I find a paid gig as a trainee. They call it a KSAC T. I have to get work hours now to get my full credential. I'm working at a men's shelter detox. I start to figure out ways on how I can kind of write the treatment plans later and kind of work my way. And then I realized, wait a minute, this isn't too different from when elementary school was tough, but junior high and high school were okay because I had nobody watching over my shoulder when it would, or giving me a hard time if it took me too long to finish a writing assignment. I had all the time I could. Now I'm unconscious of this, but I know, but there's that like you talked about, there's that authenticity. There's that I can survive. This, you can do this. These are resources within myself I don't understand I have, but I'm doing it. Now, this is only upon reflection. So I get through working there. I start to think, well, maybe I'm okay. Maybe I can work in an outpatient setting. Ooh, that was a big mistake because now I can't really just hide out in my office and take my time. So I was like, fuck. And so basically I'm learning these things as I go, and I'm taking it out on my wife. I'm using her as my emotional garbage pail.
Let me ask you something. Why do men do that?
What's that? Why do we use women as an emotional garbage pail?
Yeah, like did she do that to you? Because I don't.
No,
I know that
no.
I can't.
You know what
like,
it is?
I don't do
found,
it. I just know a lot of men in my life
No,
do it.
she does not do that.
Every
at
man in
all.
my life has
There
done
are
that,
some
actually.
men, there are some women that I've had in my life that have done that. She is not, my wife is definitely not one of them.
Okay.
No, but her thing was the opposite, was just, you know, the retain, and, you know, more than likely maybe develop an ulcer later, you know.
Okay.
And
So
I'm
she
an
wasn't like
uncaring,
just, it
yeah.
wasn't like brushing off her, you know,
No,
like a
it was
duck's back.
affecting my wife. It would
She
affect
was
anybody.
eating it. Ugh.
Yeah, but she would just eat it. And I was like, well, she's not complaining. And I'm like, dude, see, now I'm writing a ninth step now. Just I'm learning about these. I'm looking at these things. You know, she's an afterthought. I'm consumed with trying to do this career. I got to get through this. I'm gonna make it. I don't know what I'm. It was a shit show, and it was. And then I got like, you know, years have passed. It's a miracle I didn't use. And then I get an outpatient job. It's a disaster. I have to go back to the detox. Then I think I'm going to work in another outpatient because it's close to the house. That was fucked up. Now, these are the places are fucked up, but I look at my part. And again, I can't access the ability to get honest that I have a learning disability, that my spelling is horrible, that my writing skills, that I'm slow, and that I'm not suited for this. Although I can do the counseling.
The counseling. Yes. This is what always stopped me from counseling, because I knew
and
that
I
there's
hope
no
I hope
way.
this stops other people who are
Well,
considering
I
it,
don't
who
have a
these
GED.
who have
I
these
couldn't
issues.
even.
Who have
I don't
these
even
issues.
have. I don't even have a high school diploma, Robert. There's no way that I could even do that. I would have to get a high school diploma first. I'd have to start
Right.
studying. I'm menopause. I got brain damage. There's
Well,
like no way that I'm going to be able to do that. But
No, but what I
it's
found for me is, and this is God's grace. I mean, only God's grace. I seriously mean this. Then I leave the outpatient. I'm at a point where I'm like, sweetheart, I don't know what kind of job I can even work anymore, but I can't do this. I'm gonna fucking use. I want to kill myself. This is horrible. And she's like scared out of her wits. Her man is fucking torturing himself, her, everybody else, and he wants to kill himself. It's a nightmare. And I am so fucking lost. And I'm still trying to go to meetings and shit. I'm not getting dick out of it at the time. And I'm sure as hell not praying anymore. The literature's not even in my life. And I'm just fucking lost. And then my wife made a suggestion, said, listen, get all the hours you need, then quit. And I said, you know what? At least complete the task. And that's cool. That's a recovery thing, and buried in all the insanity, that, you know, at least finish what you started. And I agreed with that. And then I did. And I did get my full credential. I did pass the exam. I passed the exam before I got my hours. I passed in the first
It's good
shot.
that she was there, man.
My
kinda...
wife has, I got this from somebody else, but my wife paid a high price for my healing. I mean that with all sincerity. So when I talk to my wife today, I always tell her this when I finish my conversation with her: you owe me nothing. Whatever you need me to do to help you with your move or where you're at, I am at your disposal no matter what.
Does she reciprocate?
She is very kind. My wife is extremely kind. And she's cool with us living apart.
Right.
And, you know, I just wish it was in the same state. But it's where we're at. My love for her will never die. What she chooses to do is her business. And I am cool with that. But I'm kind of trying to stay chronological. I'm at the verge of jumping off the 59th Street Bridge. I had an interview with my last job where I'm working now. I feel like I've devastated my life. I feel like the only way out is death. That's scary, because using wasn't going to be an option. I knew where that led. And I literally, I had an interview with the place. They loved my interview, but then they gave me a typing thing and they turned the spell check off on the Word doc. And I was like, oh shit, I'm fucked. No. And then I did the thing and I was like, that's it. I'm done. I got nothing. I'm in my 50s. I don't know where I'm going to go for work, what I'm going to do. I've damaged my relationship. I can't even say, hey, I came home with a new job. They did hire me. And I've been there since 2020. And COVID saved me. Because of the lockdown, there's nobody hanging over my shoulder. I do all the phone calls. I just do assessments and intakes because I came to that awareness. Like, dude, this is all you really kind of can find here. That's not going to hurt you in this environment. The assessments and intakes. You talk to the client next. You might struggle with the typing, but have your little Word doc templates. I'm smart. I'm resourceful. I learned that. See, the thing with intelligence, which they don't teach us when we were in our generation,
It's called creative intelligence.
is that, yeah, exactly. It's like, well, he can't spell. He's a dumbass. That's what we grew up with. He's lazy. He won't even try. Do you know I would sit in a little cubicle by myself on lunchtime in elementary school trying to spell the same words over and over and over again? I had
Robert.
more than enough willingness.
Robert,
Yeah,
I did the same thing.
I know.
And I did it at home. I did it at home when I got home.
Yeah.
And I would wonder why. And I would try to write neatly like my friends. I couldn't write neatly. I couldn't write nicely. I couldn't pay attention.
Yeah.
I couldn't, and I kept trying to spell. And when a teacher would call on me to read out loud, I literally felt like the life was dropping out of me. Like the life was pouring out of me. Like, don't make me read in front of people, because it was so shameful. I would stutter and couldn't read the words properly.
Oh, yeah.
It was
kids laughing at you, and
it was
yeah,
humiliating.
it was a horror show. Yeah.
It was absolute horror show. And then home was a horror show. So school was a horror show. Home was a horror show.
There's no peace.
It was just God nonstop.
I'm just glad that's over.
You know what? We're going to wind this up again. So let's take another 5 minutes, wind this up again, and then do a part 3.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah. Listen, I'm glad you're letting me go.
But we don't have to do a part 3 today because I'm done. It's night for me and I want to go to bed.
Yeah,
we'll schedule it for next weekend. But let's wrap
I'll wrap it up.
Part up.
Okay. So the blessing is I did find employment. And to lead into the part 3, I came to a few conclusions, and I realized these conclusions were won through hard won through my own suffering that I brought upon myself. Okay. And the reason I can say any of that is I have the foundation of the 12 steps. I may not have been practicing them very well, and it led me to the places it led me. But the suffering and recognizing that, it's my own foot that's kicking my ass, that begins an awakening that allows for a higher power to come in. And this is the beauty of really, for me, the deeper aspects of recognizing that those who are powerless and their lives have become unmanageable, we need a higher power. And we are introduced and learn how to use this higher power from steps 2 on. We gain a power, and it's not me. And all the study and all the reading and all the praying and all the technique, so to speak, is only useful for this addict's recovery if I concede to my innermost self that it is a conduit, an opening, like I said at the first podcast, or the beginning when I said the prayer, allowing a higher power in, for God to come in and take control. I am merely a vessel, and this is really the deeper part of it. And when I got beaten and surrendered and recognized that I needed emotional sobriety, it's a reliance on God and not on self, not on my best ideas, not on, any of that stuff. And like I said, more importantly for me, do the steps, do the work, read the literature, but recognize for me that that's not God. The meeting is not God. The sponsor is not God. The fellowship is not God. And Sandy Beach said it best. These are pointers. We are way showers. They are way showers to God, to God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And once I opened my mind up to that, I was led to the home group that I have today. And we pray and meditate.
You could plug that meeting now. Plug it.
We call ourselves
great meeting.
We call ourselves Sunday 103. We meet in Jackson Heights. It's in the New York City intergroup. You can look us up. But I will say this with a caveat. It is not a contemporary Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, but you're going to hear a real message of recovery. You're going to hear a real message of recovery. And also, we are open to people from other fellowships. They welcomed me with open arms. I identify as an addict at that group. Others identify as a CODA or OA. So if that's not appealing to you, that's cool. But I'm not going to sell you a bill of goods and tell you that's not what's happening there. And you may not think that's official and whatever, and you're entitled, because I have a live and live attitude.
Well, that's what the BRG is.
Well, that's why I turned people on from 103 to the BRG. They love it. There's some young ladies that I've given the information, especially, and they're ACA folks.
Yeah.
So I hope they come. But to guys kind of wrap it up, it really is. It's God's strength and mercy and love, and I'm at peace because I'm not trying to run the show. And then we'll leave it for the next installment.
Hell yeah!
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. So I love it. Remember, you heard it here, and thanks again, Robert. Part 3 coming up, and love you always, man. You are truly. You are truly inspiring. Your story is inspiring, and I'm really glad we have a platform that your story could be of use to somebody else.
Yeah,
it's definitely of use to me. I learned a lot through you.
Likewise, you really we open the door for each other and people who we're never even gonna meet. I love that. I love that because that's the mystery of life, the beauty.
Isn't it?
The surprise. It's like,
but we could only have that in the age. We were born the same year, 68, right?
69 for me.
Oh, you're fucking younger? No. Yes. No. Yes.
1 year.
Yeah, you're younger than me. I said the F word. I'm trying not to.
I cursed a little bit too, but it was funny. I like that you pointed out. It's like as you're going down to the abyss, the language is getting dirtier. Yeah, and it really and that's one of the indicators too of spiritual condition. I'm not saying I'm being a pure heart and no, don't curse, but I know for me when it's like because I don't just curse. Like I'm getting
it with every fiber. Yeah, you get it.
I'm getting a hit off that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's dangerous. It's very dangerous for me.
Sometimes it is. All right, so Robert, thank you again for coming on. Can't wait to the part 3. And love to everybody. Blessings. And remember, you heard it here. Haribo.
Haribo.
This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.